And do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, when I first got sober and started making a little extra money, I would put some aside, and when people would call me, I would call treatment centers and say, they don't have any money, but I have this. Will you please take them in? Mm-hmm. And treatment centers would work with me, and I would put a couple of people in treatment, and then I said, why not raise money and help families who can't really help themselves right now, and help addicts who can't help themselves, but help families who are struggling with the financial ruin that their loved one has put them through. Mm-hmm. So, we started picking up where people, can't afford, and we started paying for people to go away to treatment, and that's what it's all about. And Project Purple's part of that. It's all about. I don't know many families who, they have an account, a college fund, but they don't have a rehab fund. Mm-hmm. They don't have a treatment fund for their kids, and I don't know many families that can afford $30,000 a month.
Right.
And you always don't get it the first time. So, really, if you really want to look at it with an honest outlook, you're looking at maybe 90,000, mm-hmm. Or 120,000 to get your loved one treatment before they turn it around. Mm-hmm. So, that's my big thing. I think addicts need to be treated fairly. Mm-hmm. They need to be looked upon as an illness and treated as such. And hopefully someday that will turn around. Right. And hopefully, one thing in the addiction world, I believe, and I don't say this with any insult, but they claim that there's 30 million people that suffer from addiction, or 25 million people. And if you tag their family into that, you're looking at 75 million.
Right.
And if there's 75 million people affected by substance abuse, is a very quiet group of people. If 75 million people stood up and said no more, then maybe drug addicts and alcoholics would be worth more than 5 days or 7 days in a detox center.
That would be nice.
And maybe.
Whoops! Somehow you dropped out a moment, Chris.
No.
There you go.
Yeah. No, I think that maybe someday we'll be worth more than 5 to 7 days in a detox center.
Well,
because that's basically our value right now.
Well, according to the insurance companies, you're lucky. I know plenty of parents are struggling to get their kids or their 18, 19, 20-year-old into treatment, and they just can't afford. They put up their houses, they put up everything, and as you know, it's more than a week or a month in order to get into recovery and into sobriety. And it takes the willingness of the person wanting to make that change. For you, it was the birth of your son, losing your family, and not having a part of their life, or to get sober and be part of their life. And I know we only have a couple more minutes with you because you do have such a busy schedule. I have a couple listener comments and questions. One was that as a Bostonian, I was a huge fan of the Celtics during the time you were on the team, and I remember the story in 2001 when your arrest occurred, and I'm so happy to hear you're doing well now. And then another comment was, a high school counselor in California, I had not heard about your book or work until I read about it on the Answers for the Family website. You've become a real hero that is making a difference in lives of kids, and I'll be picking up a copy of your book and sharing the Purple Project with our principal and others in our community, and I applaud you for the incredible work you are doing. And so those are some comments from some of our listeners that want to make sure we pass those along to you. But I know you have a scholarship program, and how would people apply for your scholarship program?
They would just go on the heronproject.org. If they go on the heronproject.org, they can fill out the scholarship form. Unfortunately, there's, I would say most can't afford treatment, so we can't help everybody. Mm-hmm. Hopefully someday we will be able to, and that's my mission, in this. Mm-hmm. But if they go online and apply, I've been very blessed to work with treatment centers like CRC, mm-hmm. And Gosnold on Cape Cod, as well as Daytop, who are willing to intervene on behalf of my foundation to get people into treatment at a very low cost through the foundation. So if they apply online, it will come through and we will review it and we'll do our best to get back to them.
That's great. Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us for the few minutes that you had for our show, Answers for the Family. And please keep up your great work. And if any of our listeners want more information, again, you could go to www.theherronproject.com. That's THEHERRONPROJECT.com. And they can also go to www.ahoopdream.com to learn more information about what you're doing. And thank you so much, Chris. And best wishes to you and your family. And real quick, how many children do you have right now?
I have four beautiful kids, and who are reaping the rewards and benefits of recovery. It's the greatest gift I've been given in this is watching my family recover with me.
Right, that's terrific.
I recovered. I'm in recovery, and it's one day at a time, and that's how we live as a family.
Mm-hmm.
But my children also have nearly 5 years of sobriety with me, and that's the beauty of it. And that's unfortunately the sad reality is that people step over addicts every day. They step over them, they look at them, poor things, waste. And, if you don't care about the addict, care about the loved ones who are home worrying about them, mm-hmm. and the ones that will benefit from them getting help and treatment.
Yes.
Because behind every addict is a family member who's struggling just along with them. So if you don't empathize with people like me during the struggle, empathize with little Chris, Samantha, and Drew, who were at home waiting for their dad.
Yeah.
So I'm a product of treatment. I'm a product of a chance, a second chance, and I believe everyone is worth a chance, and so are my children. So thank you for having me on. Keep, you're in it just like I am, and I applaud you for it, and thank you for giving me some time on your show to share the story.
Well, thank you so much, and perhaps we can have you back again another time. I know there's a lot more to talk about your program, and I know you're a bit shy for as much public speaking as you do, but keep the Purple Project going, and any schools interested, go to the website and gather more information, or families that need a little extra help, contact the Herron Project. All right, you take care, Chris, and best wishes to you.
All right, take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye. And we'll be back with more Answers for the Family. We have another guest coming up in just a few moments. So please stand by for Dr. Fuhrman.
Founded over 25 years ago to meet the needs of families in crisis, West Shield specializes in resolving adolescent issues that negatively impact the family. From preteen to young adult, we are experienced and qualified to help. We offer solutions which include referrals to a network of top professionals internationally that we work very closely with in the fields of educational consulting, psychology, and psychiatry. Our in-home crisis intervention care program helps to stabilize families and bring effective resolution. We are supported by our licensed investigation company that enables us to offer legal and expert services for locating runaway teens and more. Our therapeutic transportation services help to ensure that adolescents in crisis are safely provided transportation to specialized schools and programs with unmatched experience and success. Simply put, West Shield Adolescent Services is the best solution when your family is facing personal crisis. Call 1-800-899-8585 and let us help you.
And we're back with more Answers for the Family. I'm your host today, Dr. Melody Fox. And we are going ahead and giving a call to Dr. Fuhrman. He is our next guest today. And hopefully he'll be answering in just a moment here. As according to the new Centers of Disease Control, estimates that nearly 26 million Americans have diabetes today. And Dr. Fuhrman, hi. Hi, that's Dr. Melody Fox with Answers for the Family. I was just explaining real quick while we were dialing you that nearly 26 million Americans have diabetes today, and as many as 80 million qualify as having pre-diabetes. And these are really staggering numbers, and I heard they've just tripled over the last 3 decades. And if the trend continues, 1 in 3 American adults could have diabetes by 2050, and that is just around the corner. That just amazes me.
Yeah, it's right. So the obesity epidemic is just exploding, and the resultant diabetes and heart disease risk, and increasing risk of cancer, everything associated with it.
And that's why I think it's so important. You came out with this book, and welcome, by the way. We're talking to Joel Fuhrman. He's a medical doctor. He's written several books, and his latest book is The End of Diabetes, the Eat to Live Plan to Prevent and Reverse Diabetes. And, you know, I hear about diabetes everywhere, and I was just curious, is it passed down generation to generation, or do you think it's more environmental on the way families eat?
Well, of course, we're talking today right now about type 2 diabetes, or adult onset, which is a little different from type 1. Type 1 has different influences. It's usually called juvenile or childhood onset. It happens earlier in life. But the type 2 diabetes we're talking about occurs predominantly in overweight people. 95% of people who develop diabetes is because they're overweight, and fat on the body blocks insulin uptake. So the pancreas is then forced to secrete heightened amounts of insulin to accommodate the body's needs, because your needs increase as you gain weight. So it's the inevitable byproduct of our growing waistlines in America of the way we eat. Mm-hmm. So there are no wild animals with diabetes in the woods, and diabetes didn't occur in regular people for thousands of years and thousands of years until we had agriculture and, modern farming methods. People can eat processed foods, flours, sugars, oils, where we could concentrate calories and become overweight, which was impossible in natural foods. So it's not a genetic disease. We all inherit some genetic tendencies, but nutrition is the point here, is that nutrition overwhelms genetics. And with the right nutrition, genetics really doesn't really matter. And I'm making this radical claim here, and I'm saying that you don't have to have heart attacks, you don't have to have strokes, you don't have to have high blood pressure, and you don't have to have diabetes. That with the right type of nutrition, these diseases can not only be prevented, but they can also be reversed. Right.
Now, you had mentioned that there's a difference between diabetes 1 and diabetes 2, and that's juvenile diabetes. When is it considered adult diabetes? Are you 16, 18, 25, 60, or at what age does it switch over, the difference? I've always been confused about that.
It's not really. That's why now the terminology became type 1 and type 2. They no longer call it juvenile and adult onset anymore, because a person could develop, because now when people are eating fast foods and processed foods, with so much of the American diet became processed, we're seeing obesity and high blood pressure and diabetes in children due to their weight and bad diets. But that's type 2 diabetes. So you can have a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old develop type 2 adult onset diabetes because they're drinking soda and going to fast food restaurants and gaining weight and becoming overweight, and they're developing adult onset or type 2 diabetes. Whereas a person could be 22 years old and develop type 1 because it's an autoimmune attack on the pancreas that destroys the beta cells. It's not due to becoming overweight and, let's say, eating high fat, eating fattening foods like type 2 is. So it's really not an age thing, but it just so happens that the type 1 afflicts people that are young, usually around the age of 5 to 10, and the adult onset usually starts in people's 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Okay, so we could be talking to a lot of parents, and they're raising their children with that fast food diet, and by the time they're 30 or 40, they may go on into that diabetes category. Now,
exactly, and don't forget the American diet, which the parent eats when they're pregnant before they conceive, and how they feed the infant, not breastfeeding the infant. In other words, the American diet is also a cause of type 1 diabetes. It's just not manifest by the diet the child is fed. It's manifest by a genetic influence, viral effect, by a viral attack on the beta cells, in conjunction with nutritional factors that can be influenced by epigenetic changes in the mother's poor diet during pregnancy. So, and even a person who has type 1, by the way, because we're saying type 1, the people are not going to get rid of type 1, but type 1 diabetes is a death sentence. In other words, people with higher risk of heart attack, high risk of blindness, kidney failure, strokes, and with the type of nutritional improvements that I'm talking about in the book, The End of Diabetes, it's going to enable a type 1 to live a normal life, have a normal lifespan, not have heart attacks and these potential tragedies in their future from the mix of from the conventional diabetologists and physicians' way of treating type 1s in conjunction with the standard diet recommended to type 1 requires them to have too much insulin, which accelerates their demise, and I'm giving them so even though they're not getting rid of it, I'm giving them a plan that's going to help them tremendously.
Yeah, we had a listener comment come in, and under our questions, the comments answer, it says, I have several friends with teens who have type 2